The woman in the corner of the cafe wasn't supposed to change everything, but the moment Octavian Yarrow saw her cradling his niece against her chest, whispering soft reassurances, while the child's tiny fangs retracted in sleep, he knew his carefully constructed world was about to shatter. Vivienne Dalton had been caring for little Seraphina for 3 years without fanfare, without demanding recognition or reward, simply because no one else would. The child had been born to Octavian's sister Morgana, mere months before a rival house ambushed her during a diplomatic mission to the Eastern courts. Morgana had died protecting an alliance that ultimately meant nothing, leaving behind a half-blood infant that most of the vampire nobility wanted nothing to do with. Half-human children were considered weakness incarnate, a stain on pure bloodlines, and the fact that Seraphina existed at all had caused whispers throughout the shadow courts that ruled alongside the human world. Octavian had been too consumed with vengeance and political maneuvering to raise a child. He had hunted down every vampire involved in his sister's death, leaving their houses in ruins, their bloodlines extinguished. He'd consolidated power, eliminated threats, and emerged as the uncontested vampire king of the Northern Territories. But in all that time, he'd failed the one thing Morgana would have wanted most. He'd abandoned her daughter. He hadn't meant to. He'd arranged for caregivers, of course, a succession of vampire attendants who lasted weeks at most before finding excuses to leave. Seraphina cried constantly, refused blood supplements, and seemed to reject everything about her vampire heritage. The last caregiver had quit after the child bit her in a fit of rage, and Octavian had been preparing to take the girl to one of the isolated estate houses when Vivienne had appeared. She'd been working at the cafe near his corporate headquarters, a small independent place that served both humans and vampires with carefully crafted discretion. Octavian had overheard her talking to the owner about needing extra work, mentioning her background in child development and early education. On impulse, he'd approached her with an offer that must have seemed insane. Care for a vampire child, live in a secure apartment he'd provide, receive a salary that would clear her student debts within a year. Vivienne had asked only 2 questions. Is the child safe, and does she need someone who will stay? When he'd answered yes to both, she'd simply nodded and said, "Then I'll do it." That had been 3 years ago. Octavian had checked in periodically, always from a distance, always careful not to disrupt whatever fragile stability Vivienne had created. His reports told him that Seraphina was thriving, learning to control her abilities, speaking in full sentences, laughing. Things he'd never thought possible for the grieving, angry infant she'd been, but he hadn't seen them together until tonight. He'd come to the cafe because one of his informants had reported unusual activity in the area, potential hunters scouting vampire-friendly establishments. He'd intended to assess the threat personally, perhaps reinforce the protective wards he'd placed around the building years ago. Instead, he'd found Vivienne sitting in the corner booth, Seraphina asleep against her shoulder, a half-finished children's book open on the table beside them. The cafe was nearly empty, just past closing time, and the owner was clearly letting Vivienne stay late out of kindness. She was humming something soft and wordless, her fingers gently stroking the child's white hair, so pale it almost glowed in the dim light. Seraphina had inherited the distinctive Yarrow coloring. White hair, porcelain skin, and eyes that shifted between silver and violet depending on her mood. But her features were softer than pure vampire children, more human, more vulnerable. She looked perhaps 5 years old, though her actual development was slower than either species due to her mixed blood. Octavian stood frozen in the doorway, unable to look away. Vivienne was beautiful in a way he hadn't allowed himself to notice before. She had dark brown hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, warm tan skin, and expressive hazel eyes that seemed to catch and hold light. She wore simple clothes, jeans, and a soft sweater. Nothing remarkable, but there was something about the way she held herself that spoke of quiet strength. She looked up then, sensing his presence with the awareness that came from living alongside vampire kind. Her eyes widened slightly, and he saw her arms tighten protectively around Seraphina. "Your Majesty." Her voice was low, careful not to wake the child. "We weren't expecting you." Octavian moved into the cafe, each step deliberate. He was tall even by vampire standards, well over 6 feet, with the same white hair and pale skin that marked all of his bloodline. He wore modern clothes, a dark suit that cost more than most people earned in a month, but he moved with the predatory grace of something ancient and dangerous. His eyes were pure silver, cold and assessing, and he saw Vivienne's pulse jump at her throat when he approached. "I didn't announce my visit." He stopped a respectful distance from their booth, aware that crowding them would only increase her wariness. "I had business in the area. I wanted to see how Seraphina was progressing. She's doing wonderfully. Vivienne's voice softened as she glanced down at the sleeping child. We were at the library earlier, and she helped me pick out books for next week's reading. She's starting to recognize written words, not just spoken ones. Her control over her fangs has improved significantly. She hasn't had an accidental extension in over 2 months. Pride flickered through Octavian's chest, unexpected and sharp. You've done well with her. She's easy to love. Vivienne met his eyes directly, and he was struck by the lack of fear there. Most humans couldn't hold his gaze for more than a few seconds, instinct warning them of the predator before them. But Vivienne looked at him like he was simply a man, albeit one she was cautious around. She talks about you sometimes. She knows who you are, what you are to her. Guilt, another unfamiliar emotion, twisted in his chest. What does she say? That her uncle is very important. That he keeps her safe. Vivienne paused, choosing her words carefully. That he must be very busy because he hasn't visited yet, but that's all right because important people have important work. The words struck harder than any blade. Seraphina had created excuses for his absence, had forgiven him without him ever asking for forgiveness. I should have come sooner. The admission felt like pulling shards of glass from his throat. Vampire kings didn't apologize, didn't show weakness, but looking at his niece sleeping peacefully in a stranger's arms, he couldn't maintain the pretense. I thought distance was safer for her, that my presence would draw unwanted attention. It might. Vivienne's honesty was refreshing. But children need family, attention or not. She needs to know she matters to you. Before Octavian could respond, Seraphina stirred, her small hand clutching at Vivienne's sweater. Her eyes opened slowly, that distinctive silver-violet color blinking into focus. When she saw Octavian, she went completely still, the way vampire children did when assessing potential threats. Hello, little star. Octavian used the nickname Morgana had given her, a term of endearment in the old language that meant precious light in darkness. Seraphina's eyes widened. She sat up in Vivienne's lap, staring at him with an intensity that reminded him painfully of his sister. Uncle Octavian? Yes. He knelt down so he was at her eye level, making himself smaller, less threatening. I came to see you. Vivi said you might visit someday. Seraphina's voice was high and clear, with the slight musical quality that marked vampire speech. Are you angry with me? The question hit him like a physical blow. No, never. Why would you think that? Because you never come to see me. Seraphina's lower lip trembled slightly. Vivi says you're busy, but I thought maybe you didn't want me because I'm only half. Octavian felt something crack inside his chest. He looked at Vivienne, who was watching him with an expression that managed to be both sympathetic and challenging. This was his failure, his absence that had made his niece feel unwanted. Listen to me, Seraphina. He kept his voice gentle but firm. You are Yarrow. You are my blood, my family, and I want you very much. I stayed away because I thought it would keep you safer, but I was wrong. I should have been here. I should have let you know how important you are. Seraphina studied him for a long moment, then slowly extended her small hand toward him. Octavian took it carefully, his pale hand dwarfing her tiny fingers. Her skin was warmer than a full vampire's would be, another reminder of her mixed heritage. Can you stay for a while? Seraphina asked hopefully. Vivi was going to make hot chocolate when we got home. She makes it really good with the special dark powder. Octavian glanced at Vivienne, who nodded slightly. If your uncle wants to join us, he's welcome. But we should head to the apartment soon. It's getting late. I'll escort you. Octavian stood, still holding Seraphina's hand. The streets aren't entirely safe tonight. Vivienne's expression sharpened. Is there a specific threat? Possibly. Nothing confirmed, but I'd rather not take chances. He appreciated that she didn't panic or ask unnecessary questions. She simply gathered their things efficiently, helped Seraphina into her small coat, and allowed him to guide them out of the cafe. The owner, an older vampire named Marcus, who'd run the establishment for decades, nodded respectfully to Octavian as they left. Your Majesty, safe travels. The apartment Octavian had arranged was only a few blocks away, in a building with state-of-the-art security and several other vampire families in residence. He'd chosen it specifically because it was defendable, warded, and had emergency protocols in place. As they walked, he kept his senses extended, monitoring the shadows for any sign of threat. Seraphina chattered happily, her earlier reserve melting away as she told him about her day, the books they'd read, the park they'd visited. Vivienne walked beside them, quiet but attentive, her hand resting lightly on Seraphina's shoulder. When they reached the building, Octavian paused to reinforce the wards, speaking words in the old language that made the air shimmer briefly with power. Vivienne watched with interest but didn't comment, simply guided Seraphina into the elevator and up to the 3rd floor. The apartment was modest by Octavian's standards, but clearly well-maintained and comfortable. It had 2 bedrooms, a spacious living area, and a kitchen that showed signs of frequent use. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator, and toys were neatly organized in bins along one wall. It felt like a home, something Octavian hadn't experienced in centuries. Make yourself comfortable. Vivienne gestured to the couch while she and Seraphina headed to the kitchen. We'll get that hot chocolate started. Octavian sat, feeling oddly out of place in the domestic setting. He could hear them moving around, Vivienne's patient instructions and Seraphina's eager responses. The child was happy here, genuinely content in a way he'd never seen in the brief glimpses he'd allowed himself before. They returned a few minutes later with 3 mugs. Seraphina carefully carried hers with both hands, concentrating hard on not spilling. She settled beside Octavian on the couch, close enough that he could feel her warmth. Vivi makes the best hot chocolate in the whole world, Seraphina declared confidently. She uses real chocolate and vanilla and a tiny bit of cinnamon. Octavian took a sip and had to acknowledge the child was right. It was rich and perfectly balanced, comforting in a way he hadn't expected. It's excellent. Vivienne sat in the armchair across from them, cradling her own mug. Thank you. My grandmother's recipe. She paused, then asked carefully, You mentioned the streets weren't safe. Should we be worried? I've reinforced the wards on the building. You're secure here. Octavian chose his words carefully, aware of Seraphina listening. There have been reports of hunters in the city. Likely just reconnaissance, but I'm taking precautions. Hunters are bad, Seraphina said matter-of-factly. They hurt vampires. Vivi told me we always have to be careful because some people don't understand that vampires can be good. That's right. Vivienne met Octavian's eyes over the child's head. We've talked about safety, about not showing her fangs in public, about staying close to me when we're out. She's learned well. Octavian was impressed by how thoroughly Vivienne had prepared his niece for the reality of their world. Many humans who cared for vampire children either over-sheltered them or didn't take the threats seriously enough. Vivienne had found the balance. They talked for another hour, Seraphina gradually growing drowsy again despite her earlier nap. When her eyes started drooping, Vivienne stood smoothly. Bedtime, little one. Say goodnight to your uncle. Seraphina threw her arms around Octavian's neck in a sudden, fierce hug. Will you come back, please? Octavian returned the embrace carefully, aware of how fragile she was compared to him. Yes, I promise. I'll visit soon, and properly this time. Okay. Seraphina pulled back, smiling sleepily. I love you, Uncle Octavian. The words struck him silent. He'd heard declarations of loyalty, of fear, of respect throughout his long life, but love was something else entirely. Something he hadn't felt directed at him in decades, perhaps longer. I love you too, little star. The words came easier than he'd expected. Vivienne carried Seraphina toward the bedroom, and Octavian heard the soft sounds of nighttime routines, teeth brushing and story reading, and gentle goodnights. He sat in the quiet living room, processing the evening's revelations, the unexpected emotions churning through him. When Vivienne returned, she'd changed into more comfortable clothes, loose pants, and a soft shirt that made her look younger, less guarded. She sat back in the armchair, studying him with those perceptive hazel eyes. She needed that, Vivienne said quietly. She's needed you for a long time. I know, I was a coward. Octavian met her gaze directly. I was afraid I'd fail her the way I failed Morgana. Your sister's death wasn't your fault, wasn't it? Bitterness crept into his voice. I was the one who negotiated that alliance. I sent her to the eastern courts. I put her in danger. You couldn't have known there would be an ambush. Vivienne leaned forward, her voice firm. You can't control everything, even as a king, but you can control what you do now. Seraphina needs her uncle. She needs family who loves her, who shows up, who makes her feel valued. Like you do. Octavian studied her carefully. Why did you agree to this? Caring for a vampire child, living in a world that's not yours, dealing with dangers most humans never even know exist. Vivienne was quiet for a moment, considering. My little brother died when I was 19. He was only 7, and he had a rare blood disorder. I watched him waste away despite everything doctors tried, and I couldn't do anything to help him. When I saw Seraphina's photo, when you explained that she was half human and that vampire society had rejected her, I saw another child who needed someone. I couldn't save my brother, but I could help her. The honesty in her words resonated through him. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Vivienne smiled slightly. It was 10 years ago now. I've made peace with it, but it taught me that love and consistency matter more than almost anything else. That's what I've tried to give Seraphina. Stability, safety, the knowledge that someone will always be there for her. You've given her more than that. You've given her happiness." Octavian paused, then asked the question that had been building all evening. "Do you ever regret it, taking this on?" "Never." The answer was immediate and certain. "She's the best part of my life. Watching her grow, seeing her personality emerge, teaching her about the world, it's an honor. She's smart and funny and kind, and she has so much potential. I just want to make sure she has every chance to become whoever she's meant to be." Octavian felt something shift inside him, a recognition he wasn't quite ready to name. This human woman, who had no obligation to his bloodline, who had nothing to gain from this arrangement beyond money that was probably negligible to her by now, cared for his niece with a devotion that shamed him. "I want to be more involved." The decision crystallized as he spoke. "Not to take over her care, you've done far better than I could, but to be present, to be the family she deserves. I think that would be wonderful." Vivienne's smile was genuine and warm. "She talks about you a lot, you know. She's built you up in her imagination as this amazing, powerful figure. It'll be good for her to know you as a person too, not just a legend. I'm not sure the reality will live up to the legend. You don't give yourself enough credit." Vivienne stood, stretching slightly. "You've protected us from a distance for 3 years. You've ensured we had everything we needed. You eliminated threats before they could reach us. That matters, even if you haven't been physically present. How did you know about that?" Octavian was certain he'd been discreet. "I'm not oblivious. I notice when potential dangers disappear, when that vampire who was watching the playground suddenly relocated to another city, when the hunter who'd been asking questions at the cafe never came back, when my debts were paid off years ahead of schedule." Vivienne met his eyes. "You've been protecting us all along. You just haven't let us thank you for it." Octavian stood as well, suddenly aware of how close they were in the small living room. He could hear her heartbeat, steady and strong, could see the pulse at her throat. She smelled like vanilla and chocolate, and something uniquely her, warm and alive in a way that called to something deep inside him. "You never needed to thank me. Seraphina is my blood. Protecting her is my duty." "And me?" Vivienne asked softly. "Why protect me so carefully?" The question hung between them, weighted with implications neither of them was quite ready to address. Octavian knew the answer, had known it on some level since he'd first seen her with Seraphina, but admitting it felt dangerous. "Because she needs you, because you make her happy in ways I never could." He paused, then added with rare honesty, "And because losing you would devastate her, just her." Vivienne's voice was barely above a whisper. Octavian knew he should leave. He should maintain the distance he'd kept for 3 years, should protect the careful boundaries that kept everyone safe. Instead, he reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "No," he admitted. "Not just her." Vivienne's breath caught, but she didn't move away. They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with possibility and danger, and something that felt inevitably like falling. Then Octavian stepped back, breaking the moment. "I should go. It's late, and you need rest. Will you really come back?" Vivienne asked, and he heard the vulnerability beneath the question. "Or is this another 3 years of distance? I'll come back. Tomorrow evening, if that's acceptable. I'd like to have dinner with both of you. Properly this time." "We'd like that." Vivienne walked him to the door. "Be safe out there. If hunters are really scouting the area, I can handle hunters." Octavian's voice went cold. They're the ones who should be worried. He left before he could do something foolish, like stay, like reach for her again, like acknowledge the way his entire world had shifted on its axis in the span of a single evening. The city was quiet as he made his way back to his headquarters, a sleek office building that housed both legitimate business operations and the administrative center of vampire government in the Northern Territories. His second in command, Lysander, was waiting in his office, sprawled in one of the leather chairs with the casual arrogance of old friendship. "You're late," Lysander observed. He was nearly as old as Octavian, with the same pale coloring but hair that tended more toward silver than pure white. "The council meeting was supposed to start an hour ago. Cancel it." Octavian moved to the windows that overlooked the city, his mind still full of warm hazel eyes and a child's trusting embrace. "We'll reschedule for tomorrow." Lysander sat up, instantly alert. "What happened? Is there a threat? No. Yes. I don't know." Octavian turned to face his oldest friend. "I visited Seraphina tonight." "Ah!" Understanding dawned in Lysander's expression. "How is the little one?" "Thriving. Happy. Everything I'd hoped and more." Octavian paused. "I've been a fool, Lysander. I've stayed away for 3 years, told myself it was for her protection, but the truth is I was terrified. Terrified I'd fail her the way I failed Morgana. Terrified I wouldn't be enough. And now? Now I realize I've already been failing her by not being there. She's created excuses for my absence. She thinks I might be angry with her, that her mixed blood makes her unwanted. The words tasted like ash. I have to fix this, so fix it. Be present. Be the uncle she needs. Lysander studied him carefully. But that's not all that happened tonight, is it? What else is bothering you? Octavian was silent for a long moment. Her guardian, Vivienne, she's dangerous? Lysander's tone was wry. Beautiful? Intelligent? Human? All of those things. Octavian ran a hand through his white hair in a rare gesture of frustration. She's made my niece happy. She's given Seraphina stability and love and everything a child needs. She's brave and honest and completely unsuitable for any kind of involvement beyond professional. But you want her anyway. It wasn't a question, and Octavian didn't bother denying it. What I want is irrelevant. Seraphina comes first. I won't disrupt the life Vivienne has built for her, won't complicate things with my own selfish desires. Since when are you noble about what you want? Lysander shook his head. You're the vampire king. You've fought wars, eliminated rivals, reshaped our entire political structure. And you're afraid of one human woman? I'm afraid of hurting Seraphina. If I pursue something with Vivienne and it goes wrong, if she leaves because I make things uncomfortable, my niece loses the one stable presence in her life. Or, Lysander suggested, you could be honest about your intentions, treat Vivienne with the respect she's earned, and build something real. Something that benefits everyone, including Seraphina. It's not that simple. It never is. But you've never backed down from a challenge before. Lysander stood, heading for the door. Just think about it. Life is long when you're immortal, but that doesn't mean you should waste it being alone. After Lysander left, Octavian remained by the windows, watching the city lights blur and shift as dawn approached. He would need to retreat to his private chambers soon, seal the blackout curtains, and rest through the daylight hours. But for now, he let himself think about warm eyes and a child's laughter, about what it might mean to have something beyond duty and power. He thought about a family. The following evening, Octavian arrived at the apartment precisely at 6, carrying bags from one of the city's finest restaurants. He'd ordered a selection of dishes, unsure what Seraphina and Vivienne would prefer. Wanting to get everything right, Seraphina answered the door, bouncing excitedly. You came! You really came! I promised, didn't I? Octavian let himself be pulled inside, struck again by how much brighter the world seemed when filtered through a child's joy. Vivienne emerged from the kitchen, and Octavian felt his breath catch. She wore a simple dress, dark green and flowing, with her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and slightly nervous, and he realized she'd dressed up for him. I hope you're hungry, Octavian said, lifting the bags. I may have over-ordered. Vivienne laughed, and the sound went straight through him. That's all right. Seraphina has been excited all day. We've talked about nothing but your visit. They settled at the dining table, and Octavian helped arrange the various containers. There was pasta and grilled fish and roasted vegetables and fresh bread, along with blood wine for him and juice for Seraphina. He'd included a regular wine for Vivienne, something expensive and complex that he'd been assured was exceptional. Dinner was chaotic and warm, and nothing like the formal meals Octavian usually endured. Seraphina chattered constantly, showing him drawings she'd made, telling him stories about the park and the library, and her friend Rosa from the building downstairs. Vivienne interjected with gentle corrections and encouragements, guiding the conversation with practiced ease. Octavian found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did, letting go of the constant vigilance that defined his existence. Here, in this small apartment with these two people, he could simply be Uncle Octavian, not the vampire king. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. After dinner, Seraphina insisted on showing him her room. It was painted a soft purple with stars on the ceiling that glowed in the dark. Stuffed animals lined shelves, and books were stacked in careful piles. On the nightstand was a photo he recognized, Morgana holding a newborn Seraphina, taken days before his sister's death. Vivi says my mama was very brave, Seraphina said quietly, touching the frame. That she loved me more than anything. She did. Octavian knelt beside his niece, his voice rough with emotion. You were her whole world. She wanted you to be safe and happy and loved. I think she'd be grateful to Vivienne for giving you all those things. Do you miss her? Seraphina asked. Every day. She was my younger sister. I was supposed to protect her, and I failed. Seraphina put her small hand on his cheek, a gesture of comfort that nearly broke him. Vivi says sometimes bad things happen even when we try our hardest, that it's not our fault if someone gets hurt when we did everything we could. Octavian glanced toward the doorway where Vivienne stood, watching them with soft eyes. She'd been teaching his niece wisdom and compassion, had been healing wounds he hadn't known how to touch. Vivienne is a very smart person, Octavian said gently. And she's right. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It's okay to be sad. Seraphina hugged him tightly. But Mama wouldn't want you to be sad forever. She'd want you to be happy too. Later, after Seraphina was in bed, Octavian and Vivienne sat together on the couch, glasses of wine in hand. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, and Octavian felt something in his chest unwind. Thank you, he said quietly, for everything you've taught her, for the way you've honored Morgana's memory. She should know her mother was loved, that she came from love. Vivienne sipped her wine. I've told her stories about Morgana, based on what you included in the information you gave me. I hope that was all right, more than all right. I should have been the one telling her those stories. You're here now. That's what matters. Vivienne studied him carefully. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you really stay away? And please don't say it was for protection. You're powerful enough to protect her whether you're physically present or not. Octavian was quiet for a long moment, weighing honesty against self-preservation. I was afraid I'd look at her and only see what I'd lost, that I'd resent her for surviving when Morgana didn't. I knew it was irrational, knew she was innocent, but I couldn't trust myself not to hurt her with my grief. And now, when you look at her, what do you see? Hope. The word came out raw and honest. I see everything good that Morgana was, combined with a strength that's entirely Seraphina's own. I see possibility and laughter, and a future worth protecting. I see a child who deserves better than I've given her. You're giving her better now. Vivienne set down her wine glass, shifting slightly to face him. She's so happy you're here. She talked about you all day, practiced what she wanted to show you, picked out her favorite drawings. You matter to her immensely. She matters to me too, more than I'd realized possible. Octavian paused, then asked carefully, And you? Do I matter to you, Vivienne? He saw her breath catch, saw color rise in her cheeks. You're Seraphina's uncle. Of course you matter. That's not what I'm asking, and you know it. Vivienne looked away, fingers twisting in her lap. It doesn't matter what I feel. My job is to care for Seraphina, to provide stability. Getting involved with you, whatever that might mean, could complicate everything. It could, Octavian agreed, or it could make everything better. For all of us. You can't know that. No, but I know that I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since last night. I know that watching you with Seraphina makes something in my chest feel warm for the first time in decades. I know that you've accomplished what I thought was impossible. You've made me want something beyond duty and revenge. He reached out slowly, taking her hand in his. I know that I want to know you, truly know you, and that terrifies me more than any battle I've ever fought. Vivienne stared at their joined hands, his pale and cool against her warm tan skin. I'm human, you're immortal. The logistics alone are complicated but not impossible. Vivienne, I'm not asking you to marry me tonight. I'm asking if you'd be willing to explore what this could be, to let me court you properly, to see if what I'm feeling is reciprocated, to build something real. And if it doesn't work out, if we try and fail, then we fail honestly, having tried. But I'll still be Seraphina's uncle. I'll still be present in her life. Nothing will change that, regardless of what happens between us. Octavian squeezed her hand gently. I'm many things, Vivienne, but I'm not cruel. I wouldn't punish you or her for my own disappointment. Vivienne was quiet for a long time, and Octavian forced himself to wait, to let her process. Finally, she looked up at him, and he saw hope warring with fear in her eyes. I'd like that, she said softly, to see what this could be. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone cold, distant, more monster than man. She smiled slightly. But you're gentle with Seraphina. You're honest about your failings. You're trying to be better. That's rare, immortal, or not. Octavian lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. Then let me try to be better with you too. Let me show you what you've come to mean to me. The kiss on her hand was barely anything, just a brush of cool lips against warm skin, but Vivienne felt it echo through her entire body. She'd been attracted to Octavian from the first time she'd seen him, back when he'd offered her this job with his silver eyes and aristocratic features. But she'd buried that attraction deep, knowing it was inappropriate, knowing he was so far beyond her reach as to be absurd. Now he was looking at her like she was precious, like she mattered, and Vivienne didn't know what to do with the feeling blooming in her chest. Stay for a while? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We could watch a movie or just talk. I'd like to know more about you, beyond what Seraphina needs. I'd like that very much. They settled in to watch something light and entertaining, but Vivienne found herself more aware of Octavian beside her than anything on the screen. He was close enough that she could feel the coolness radiating from his skin, could see the way light caught in his silver eyes. He draped one arm along the back of the couch, not quite touching her, but the potential was there, waiting. Halfway through the movie, Vivienne found herself leaning into him, testing. His arm came around her shoulders immediately, drawing her closer, and she felt him exhale, as if he'd been waiting for permission. They talked quietly during commercial breaks, sharing pieces of themselves. Vivienne told him about growing up in a small town, about her brother's illness, about studying child development, because she wanted to understand how to help kids in crisis. Octavian shared carefully edited stories about his long life, about the world before modern technology, about the weight of leadership. "Do you ever regret it?" Vivienne asked. "Being immortal? Watching the world change, seeing people come and go? Sometimes. Immortality sounds romantic, but the reality is often lonely. You learn not to get attached because attachment means loss. Everything ends except you." He paused, his fingers absently stroking her shoulder. "But right now, in this moment, I'm grateful for every long year that led me here. That's a nice thought. It's a true one." Octavian looked down at her, and the intensity in his silver eyes made her breath catch. "You've given me something I'd stopped believing in, Vivienne. You've shown me that connection is still possible, that I can care about someone without destroying them in the process." "You won't destroy me," Vivienne said with more confidence than she felt. "I'm stronger than I look. I know you are. You'd have to be to do what you've done for Seraphina." His hand came up to cup her cheek, cool against her warmth. "But I'll still be careful with you. You're too important." He kissed her then, soft and questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Vivienne melted into him instead, her hands coming up to rest against his chest. His lips were cool but gentle, moving against hers with a patience that spoke of centuries. The kiss deepened slowly, carefully, and Vivienne felt heat unfurl in her stomach. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Octavian rested his forehead against hers. "I should go," he murmured, though he made no move to leave. "It's late, and I don't want to rush this. I don't want you to go." The admission felt huge, terrifying. "But you're probably right. Seraphina will be up early, and I need to be functional. Then I'll leave. But I'll be back tomorrow evening, and the evening after that, and the evening after that. If you'll have me, I'll have you." Vivienne smiled, feeling bold. "And next time, maybe I'll cook instead of you bringing takeout. You don't have to. I want to. I want you to see that this isn't just about you pursuing me. I'm interested too. I want to know you, spend time with you, see where this goes." Octavian's answering smile was brilliant, transforming his usually serious face into something approaching joy. "Then I'll look forward to your cooking." He kissed her once more at the door, lingering and sweet, before disappearing into the night. Vivienne stood there for a long moment, fingers pressed to her lips, wondering what she'd just started. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that felt both new and natural. Octavian visited every evening, sometimes staying for dinner, sometimes arriving later after handling vampire business. He brought gifts, books for Seraphina, flowers for Vivienne, small thoughtful things that showed he was paying attention to their lives. He integrated himself into their routine with surprising ease. He helped Seraphina with her reading, listened to her stories with genuine interest, and answered her endless questions about vampire history and culture. He attended the small recital when Seraphina performed in a children's music class, sitting in the back row with dark glasses despite the indoor lighting, looking awkwardly out of place among the human parents, and completely entranced by his niece's off-key singing. With Vivienne, he was patient and attentive, courteous in ways that felt old-fashioned and charming. He asked about her day, remembered details she'd mentioned in passing, and treated her like she was something precious. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, discovering shared interests in literature and music, debating philosophy and ethics, simply enjoying each other's company. Their physical relationship progressed slowly, built on kisses and careful touches, always mindful of Seraphina sleeping nearby. Octavian was respectful to the point of frustration sometimes, always pulling back before things went too far, always making sure Vivienne was comfortable. It felt like courting from another era, deliberate and romantic, and Vivienne found herself falling deeper with each passing day. She was unprepared for how much Seraphina blossomed with Octavian's presence. The child had always been happy, but now she was radiant, secure in the knowledge that her uncle loved her, that her family was complete. She talked constantly about Uncle Octavian, showed him every small achievement, and basked in his attention. One evening, about a month after Octavian's first visit, Vivienne was putting Seraphina to bed when the child asked, "Is Uncle Octavian your boyfriend?" Vivienne felt her face heat. What makes you ask that? He looks at you the way Prince Philip looks at Princess Aurora in Sleeping Beauty, and you smile more when he's here. Seraphina tilted her head thoughtfully. I think it would be nice if he was your boyfriend. Then maybe he could stay forever. It's complicated, sweetheart. Adult relationships are tricky. But you like him, right? And he likes you? Yes, we like each other very much. Then that's not complicated at all. Seraphina said it with such certainty that Vivienne had to laugh. I hope you're right. Now sleep. We have the zoo tomorrow, remember? After Seraphina was asleep, Vivienne found Octavian waiting in the living room, his expression contemplative. She asked you about us. You heard that? Vivienne sighed. Vampire hearing is unfair. I can't help what I overhear when you're in the same apartment. Octavian pulled her down to sit beside him. For what it's worth, I agree with her assessment. It's not complicated. I love spending time with you. I think you feel the same. The rest is just logistics. Logistics matter when you're immortal and I'm not. When your world is dangerous and mine is mundane. When you're a king and I'm a human woman caring for your niece. Then we address the logistics. We make plans. We build something that accounts for all of those complications. Octavian took her hands in his. Vivienne, I haven't felt this way about anyone in longer than you've been alive. I'm not interested in letting that go because things might be difficult. What do you want? Long term, I mean. If we do this, really do this, what does that look like? Octavian was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I want you in my life permanently. I want to wake each evening knowing I'll see you. I want to help you raise Seraphina to be the family she deserves. I want to introduce you to my world properly, not as an employee, but as someone important to me. Eventually, if you're willing, I want to offer you the choice of immortality, so we don't have to face the limit of your lifespan. Vivienne's breath caught. That's a lot, it is, and I'm not asking you to decide tonight or even soon, but I need you to know that I'm serious about this, about you. This isn't casual for me. It's not casual for me either. Vivienne squeezed his hands. But immortality, that's huge, that's forever, it is, and it's a choice I'll never force on you, but it's a choice I hope you'll consider eventually. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. For now, let's just focus on what we have. Everything else can wait. Vivienne relaxed into his embrace, letting herself believe in possibility. Okay, we'll take it one day at a time. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. 2 nights later, Vivienne was walking home from the grocery store with Seraphina when she felt it. The prickle of awareness that meant someone was watching. She'd learned to trust her instincts over the past 3 years, lessons learned from living adjacent to the vampire world. She tightened her grip on Seraphina's hand and picked up her pace. They were only a block from the apartment, close enough that she could reach safety if they moved quickly. Vivi? Seraphina's voice was small, worried. Something's wrong. Stay close to me. Vivienne kept her voice calm, not wanting to scare the child. We're almost home. The attack came from the side, fast and brutal. A man stepped out of an alley. And Vivienne recognized the telltale signs of a hunter. The specialized weapons, the cold determination, the UV flashlight designed to weaken vampires. The half-blood, the hunter said, eyes fixed on Seraphina. Didn't think she'd actually exist. Abomination like that should have been put down at birth. Vivienne moved without thinking, putting herself between the hunter and Seraphina. You're not touching her. Get out of the way, human. This doesn't concern you. She's a child under my care. It absolutely concerns me. Vivienne's voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. Leave now, or you'll regret it. The hunter laughed, reaching for something at his belt. You think you can stop me? You're just a human. You're nothing. What happened next occurred in a blur. The hunter lunged forward, and Vivienne moved to block him, knowing she was outmatched, knowing she was probably going to die, but determined to buy time for Seraphina to run. She felt something cold and sharp against her side, felt pain blossom and spread, and then everything shifted. Octavian appeared like vengeance incarnate, moving faster than Vivienne's eyes could track. One moment he wasn't there, and the next he had the hunter by the throat, lifted off the ground, silver eyes blazing with murderous rage. You dare! Octavian's voice was death itself, cold and absolute. You dare attack my family. The hunter struggled, trying to reach his weapons, but Octavian's grip was unbreakable. She's a half-blood, an abomination. The Council of Hunters declared her a legitimate target. Then the Council of Hunters has signed their own death warrant. Octavian's hand tightened, and the hunter's struggles weakened. You will deliver a message to your masters. Tell them that Seraphina Yarrow is under my personal protection. Any who threaten her will face me directly, and I will show no mercy. He released the hunter suddenly, letting him collapse to the ground. Run. Now. before I change my mind about letting you live." The hunter fled, stumbling in his haste to escape. Octavian turned immediately to Vivienne and Seraphina, his rage transforming to concern in an instant. "Are you hurt?" His hands moved over Vivienne carefully, and she felt him stiffen when he reached her side. "You're bleeding. It's not that bad." But even as she said it, Vivienne felt dizzy, weak. Looking down, she saw red spreading across her shirt, more blood than she'd expected. "Vivi," Seraphina's voice was high with panic. "Vivi, you're hurt." "I'm okay, sweetheart." But Vivienne's legs gave out, and she would have collapsed if Octavian hadn't caught her. "We need to get you to safety." Octavian scooped her up easily, cradling her against his chest. "Seraphina, stay close to me. Don't leave my side for any reason." The trip to the apartment was a blur. Vivienne was aware of Octavian's voice, steady and commanding, calling someone on his phone. She felt him carry her inside, felt the softness of the couch beneath her, heard Seraphina crying somewhere nearby. "Let me see." Octavian's hands were gentle as he examined the wound. The blade was silver-coated. "It won't heal quickly, but it's not fatal if we treat it properly." "Vivienne, look at me. Focus on my voice." She tried, but the world was starting to fade around the edges. "Seraphina, keep her safe. She's safe. You both are. I've called my personal healer. She'll be here in minutes." Octavian's voice was thick with emotion. "You were so brave, so incredibly brave and foolish. Why didn't you run? Why did you stay and fight? She's my daughter, not by blood, but in every way that matters. I'd die before I let anyone hurt her. You're not going to die." Octavian pressed something against her side, probably trying to stop the bleeding. "I won't allow it. Do you hear me? You're going to be fine." Vivienne wanted to believe him, but the pain was overwhelming, and darkness was creeping in from all sides. She heard voices, felt hands on her, and then everything went black. She woke to pale morning light, filtered through curtains, and the feeling of something cool against her forehead. Blinking slowly, she realized she was in an unfamiliar room, luxurious and dark, with blackout curtains and expensive furniture. "You're awake." Octavian was beside her immediately, and she'd never seen him look so haggard. "Thank the Ancient Ones. You've been unconscious for hours." "Seraphina?" Her voice came out rough, throat dry. "Safe. She's sleeping in the next room. Lysander is watching over her." Octavian helped her sit up carefully, supporting her with pillows. "How do you feel?" "Like I got stabbed." Vivienne managed a weak smile. "Where are we?" "My private residence. I couldn't risk leaving you at your apartment, not when hunters know where you live." Octavian's jaw tightened. "I've already moved your belongings here, and I've tripled security around the building. No one will get to you or Seraphina again. You can't just uproot our lives." "I can, and I have." "Vivienne, they targeted you because of me, because of Seraphina. I won't allow you to be vulnerable." His hand found hers, gripping tightly. "When I saw that hunter attack you, when I saw your blood, I've never felt fear like that in my entire existence. The thought of losing you. But you didn't. I'm here. I'm okay." Vivienne squeezed his hand. "A little stabbed, but okay." "You could have died. You almost died protecting Seraphina." Octavian's voice broke slightly. "I owe you everything." "You don't owe me anything. I love her. I'd do it again without hesitation." Octavian stared at her for a long moment, something fierce and possessive in his silver eyes. Then he leaned forward and kissed her, desperate and tender at once. "You're remarkable," he murmured against her lips. "Brave and selfless and everything I don't deserve." "Stop that. You deserve to be happy." Vivienne pulled back to look at him properly. "What happened after I passed out?" "Where's the hunter?" "Delivered his message and fled the city. The Council of Hunters will think twice before targeting Seraphina again, but I'm not taking chances. I've declared her under my direct protection officially. Any threat to her is a threat to me and my crown. It's the highest form of vampire law. Will that be enough? It will have to be. And if it's not, I'll eliminate every hunter who threatens my family." The cold promise in his voice sent shivers down Vivienne's spine. This was the Vampire King, ancient and dangerous, and she was reminded that Octavian was capable of terrible things when those he loved were threatened. "Uncle Octavian?" Seraphina's small voice came from the doorway. She looked tiny in borrowed pajamas, her white hair messy from sleep, her violet eyes wide with worry. "Come here, little star." Octavian opened his arms and Seraphina rushed to the bed, careful not to jostle Vivienne. "You're awake!" Seraphina threw herself at Vivienne as gently as a 6-year-old could manage. "I was so scared. You got hurt because of me. Not because of you. Never because of you." Vivienne held the child close, ignoring the ache in her side. "I chose to protect you because I love you. That's what family does. We're a family?" Seraphina looked between them hopefully. "All of us?" Vivienne glanced at Octavian, seeing the same emotion reflected in his eyes. "Yes, all of us. Then we should stay together." Uncle Octavian's house is really big and safe, and he has a whole room just for books. Seraphina's enthusiasm was returning, the resilience of childhood bouncing back. Can we live here, please? That's up to Vivienne. Octavian's voice was careful, giving her the choice. But I want you both here. I want you safe where I can protect you. Vivienne knew this was a pivotal moment. Moving in with Octavian meant committing to this relationship, meant fully entering the vampire world, meant changing everything. But looking at Seraphina's hopeful face and Octavian's vulnerable expression, she realized the decision had already been made. Somewhere between that first evening and now, they'd become her family, her home. Okay, she said softly, we'll stay. The joy on both their faces was worth any complication that would follow. The next few weeks were an adjustment. Octavian's residence was a penthouse that occupied the entire top floor of his headquarters building, a massive space with rooms Vivienne was still discovering. It was decorated in dark woods and rich fabrics, luxurious and modern, with hints of old-world elegance. Seraphina loved it immediately, claiming a bedroom with a view of the city and exploring every corner with delight. Vivienne took longer to settle, still not quite believing this was her life now. Octavian was attentive to the point of overwhelming, ensuring she had everything she needed, that her wound healed properly, that she felt comfortable in her new home. He'd given her the master bedroom while he took a smaller room, insisting she needed the space and privacy more than he did. This is ridiculous, Vivienne said one evening, finding him working in what had become his makeshift bedroom office. This is your home. I'm not kicking you out of your own room. You're not kicking me out. I'm choosing to give you space. Octavian looked up from the document spread across his desk. You're recovering. You need rest. I'm fine. The wound is healing well thanks to your healer's vampire medicine, or whatever that was. Vivienne crossed her arms, and I don't need an entire master suite. It's too much. Nothing is too much for you, Octavian. She moved closer, exasperated and fond. Stop being noble and territorial about this. We're supposed to be building something together, remember? That includes sharing space like normal people. We're not exactly normal people. I'm a vampire king, and you're a human woman who's currently being hunted by an organization that wants to kill children. All the more reason not to waste energy on silly things like separate bedrooms. Vivienne sat on the edge of his desk, meeting his silver eyes directly. I want you there. I sleep better when you're near. Is that honest enough for you? Something hot flickered in Octavian's expression. You're making it very difficult for me to be respectful. Maybe I don't want you to be quite so respectful anymore. Vivienne reached out, running her fingers through his white hair. We've been dancing around this for weeks. I think we've been patient enough. Octavian stood slowly, moving into her space with predatory grace. His hands settled on her hips, cool through the thin fabric of her clothes. Are you certain? Once we cross this line, there's no going back. I'm not a casual person, Vivienne. If we do this, I'll want all of you. Then it's a good thing I want to give you all of me. She leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and kissed him with all the pent-up longing of the past weeks. Octavian responded immediately, his control fracturing. He kissed her like she was air, and he was drowning, desperate and passionate and careful all at once. His hands moved over her back, pulling her closer, and Vivienne gasped against his mouth. Your wound! He started to pull back, but she stopped him. Is fine. I'm fine. I'm more than fine. She tugged at his shirt, wanting to feel his skin against hers. Unless you don't want this, I want you more than I've wanted anything in centuries. Octavian lifted her easily, carrying her toward the master bedroom. I want to know every inch of you. I want to hear every sound you make. I want to memorize what makes you gasp and sigh and call my name. Vivienne's breath caught at the promise in his words. Then stop talking and show me. He did. And it was everything she'd imagined and more. Octavian was patient and passionate, attentive to every response, learning her body with centuries of experience backing his touch. He was cool where she was warm, controlled where she was desperate, and together they created something that felt inevitable and perfect. Afterward, lying tangled together in the massive bed, Vivienne felt something settle deep in her chest. This was right. This was home. This was family. I love you, she said quietly into the darkness. I don't know when it happened, but I do. Octavian's arms tightened around her. I love you too. I have for weeks, but I was afraid saying it would pressure you. Nothing about you pressures me. You've given me choices at every step. Vivienne turned to face him, running her fingers over his pale features. I choose this. I choose you. I choose us, even knowing what it means. The danger, the complications, the immortality question hanging over us. Especially knowing all of that. You're worth it. We're worth it. She paused, then asked the question that had been building. If I chose to become immortal, to turn, would that change things between us? Octavian was quiet for a long moment. It would change everything and nothing. You'd be stronger, faster, immortal like me. We'd have eternity together instead of decades. But you'd also give up sunlight, regular food, much of the human world you know. It's not a decision to make lightly. I know, I'm not ready to decide yet. But I wanted to know you'd still love me, either way. I'll love you in any form, for any length of time you'll give me. Human or vampire, mortal or immortal, you're mine and I'm yours. The declaration was possessive and romantic, so very Octavian, and Vivienne felt tears prick her eyes. We're building something amazing, aren't we? We are. You, me, and Seraphina. A family that transcends species and expectation. They fell asleep together, tangled and content, and when Vivienne woke the next evening, she felt more at peace than she had in years. But peace, in the vampire world, was always temporary. The attack came a month later, coordinated and brutal. The Council of Hunters had apparently decided that Octavian's warning wasn't sufficient deterrent, and they'd allied with a rival vampire house that wanted to see the Yarrow line eliminated. Vivienne was in the library with Seraphina when the alarms went off, harsh and immediate. Octavian appeared within seconds, flanked by Lysander and several guards. We're under attack, multiple points of breach. His voice was calm but commanding. Vivienne, take Seraphina to the safe room. Now, what about you? Vivienne was already moving, gathering Seraphina into her arms. I'll handle this. Go. I'll come for you when it's clear. The safe room was a reinforced chamber in the center of the building, designed to withstand virtually any assault. Vivienne sealed them inside, holding Seraphina close as they listened to the sounds of battle filtering through the thick walls. Uncle Octavian will be okay, right? Seraphina's voice was small, scared. He's very strong. He'll protect us. Vivienne tried to sound confident, but inside she was terrified. The sounds outside were violent, crashes and shouts and things she couldn't identify. Time stretched endlessly. Minutes felt like hours, and Vivienne found herself praying to deities she wasn't sure she believed in, begging for Octavian's safety, for everyone's safety. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the door to the safe room opened. Octavian stood there, covered in blood that wasn't his own, silver eyes blazing with residual battle rage. He looked every inch the ancient warrior king, dangerous and magnificent. It's over. They're dead or fled. His voice was rough, and Vivienne saw him visibly pull himself back from the edge of violence. Are you both all right? We're fine. Scared but fine. Vivienne rushed to him, careful to avoid the worst of the blood, and he wrapped his arms around both her and Seraphina. I'm sorry you had to go through this. This is exactly the danger I was afraid of, but we're safe because you protected us. Vivienne looked up at him fiercely. You did what you had to do. We understand that. The rival house sent assassins. Working with the Hunters was their last desperate play for power. Octavian's expression was grim. I've eliminated their leadership. The house is dissolved. No one will threaten my family again. You're sure? Vivienne needed to hear it. Needed to know this wasn't just a temporary reprieve. I'm certain. I've sent a message to every vampire house and hunter organization in the territory. Harm my family and face absolute annihilation. They'll think twice now. Over the next few days, Octavian proved his words true. He restructured power in the northern territories, forging new alliances, eliminating threats, and establishing Seraphina as his acknowledged heir. The child's mixed heritage, once a source of shame, became a symbol of strength under his protection. Vivienne watched him navigate vampire politics with awe. He was ruthless when necessary, diplomatic when possible, and always, always protective of his own. She saw the weight of leadership on his shoulders, understood the sacrifices he made daily to keep everyone safe. One evening, after Seraphina was asleep and the building was quiet, Vivienne found Octavian on the balcony overlooking the city. He looked tired, older somehow despite his immortality. You carry so much, she said softly, joining him. How do you do it? How do you handle all this responsibility? I remember what I'm protecting. You, Seraphina, the people who depend on me to lead well. Octavian pulled her close, resting his chin on her head. It's easier now that I have something worth protecting beyond duty. I've been thinking about what you said, about immortality, about forever. Vivienne took a deep breath. I want that, with you. I want forever. Octavian went very still. Are you certain? This isn't a decision you can reverse, I'm certain. I love you. I love this life we're building. I want to see Seraphina grow up, want to be there for all of it. And I want centuries with you, not just decades. She turned to face him. Make me immortal. Make me yours in every way possible. The transformation is painful. It takes 3 days of blood exchange, and there's a period of adjustment afterward. Octavian cupped her face gently, But if this is truly what you want, I'll give you eternity. When can we start? Whenever you're ready. But Vivienne, once it's done, you'll be vampire. You'll need blood to survive. You'll be bound to the night. You'll outlive every human you've ever known. You need to be absolutely sure. I've never been more sure of anything. I want this. I want you. I want our family forever. Octavian kissed her then, deep and passionate and full of promise. Then we'll begin tomorrow. I'll make you mine in every way, for all eternity. The transformation was exactly as difficult as Octavian had warned. For 3 days, Vivienne existed in a haze of pain and fever and strange dreams, sustained only by Octavian's blood and his constant presence. Seraphina stayed close, reading to her, holding her hand, providing the kind of innocent comfort only a child could give. On the 4th day, Vivienne woke different. Everything was sharper, clearer, more intense. She could hear heartbeats in the building below, could smell individual blood types, could see in the darkness with perfect clarity. Her reflection showed the same face but paler, with a silvery sheen to her skin that would mark her as vampire to those who knew what to look for. How do you feel? Octavian was beside her immediately, watchful and concerned. Strange, powerful, hungry. The last word came out with an edge of desperation, and she saw him nod understanding. That's normal. Your body is demanding sustenance. I have blood supplies prepared. He helped her sit up carefully. The hunger will be intense for the first few weeks until you learn to manage it. Feeding was strange and intimate, drinking blood from a bag while Octavian watched and guided her. But after, Vivienne felt more herself, more centered. The hunger retreated to a manageable presence and she could think clearly again. I did it. I'm really immortal. The realization was huge, overwhelming. You're vampire now, part of our world permanently. Octavian pulled her close. How does it feel? Like I finally belong, like this is who I was always meant to be. Vivienne laughed shakily. Is that strange? Not at all. Some people are meant for immortality. You're one of them. He kissed her forehead. Welcome to forever, my love. Seraphina burst into the room then, unable to wait any longer. Vivi, you're awake! Uncle Octavian said you'd be different now. I am different. Vivienne held out her arms, and Seraphina climbed into her lap carefully. But I'm still me. I still love you just as much, and now you'll live forever like us. Seraphina was delighted. We can really be a family forever and ever. Forever and ever, Vivienne agreed, looking at Octavian over the child's head. All of us together. The adjustment to immortality took time, but Vivienne had excellent teachers. Octavian guided her through controlling her new abilities, managing the hunger, understanding vampire culture and politics. Lysander helped with combat training, teaching her to defend herself and others. Even Seraphina contributed, showing her the best places to find dark clothing and laughing at Vivienne's initial clumsiness with vampire speed. 6 months after her transformation, Octavian called a formal gathering of the Northern Territory's vampire houses. Vivienne dressed carefully in elegant black, her hair styled in an intricate updo, wearing jewelry that had belonged to Morgana. She looked every inch a vampire noble, regal, and beautiful, and slightly dangerous. You're nervous, Octavian observed, fastening a necklace around her throat. It was a Yarrow family piece, ancient and precious, marking her as under his protection and part of his house. I'm terrified. I'm about to meet every important vampire in the territory. You're about to be presented as my consort and Seraphina's adoptive mother. They'll respect you because they respect me, and because you've earned it through your actions. Octavian turned her to face him. You saved my niece's life multiple times. You brought our family together. You chose immortality to stay with us. You're remarkable, and they'll see that. The gathering was held in a massive ballroom several floors below the penthouse, decorated in old-world opulence. Vampires filled the space, all pale and regal, and watching with predatory interest as Octavian entered with Vivienne on one arm and Seraphina holding his other hand. Lords and ladies of the Northern Territories, Octavian's voice carried through the room with absolute authority. I present to you Vivienne Dalton Yarrow, my consort and mate, and Seraphina Yarrow, my niece and acknowledged heir. They are my family, under my protection, and deserving of the same respect you would show me. The silence was absolute for a moment, and then, one by one, the assembled vampires bowed. It was acknowledgement and acceptance, recognition of Vivienne's new status and Seraphina's places in the hierarchy. Vivienne felt tears prick her eyes, overwhelmed by the moment. This was real. This was her life now. She was part of something larger, something ancient and powerful, and she'd earned her place through love and sacrifice and choice. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and formal conversations. Vampires approached to offer congratulations and allegiance, to meet Seraphina, to size up Vivienne with varying degrees of friendliness. Through it all, Octavian remained at her side, a steady presence, making it clear that anyone who disrespected her would face his wrath. When they finally escaped back to the penthouse, Vivienne collapsed on the couch with relief. "That was intense. You were perfect." Octavian sat beside her, pulling her against his side. "Natural and elegant, and exactly what I knew you'd be. Some of them were definitely judging me. The older vampires especially. They'll come around. You have eternity to prove yourself, and I have no doubt you will." He kissed her temple. "I'm proud of you. For everything." Seraphina, who'd changed into pajamas the moment they got home, climbed onto the couch between them. "Today was the best day ever. Everyone saw that we're a real family. We are a real family." Vivienne wrapped an arm around the child. "Nothing will ever change that." They sat together in comfortable silence, a vampire king, his transformed consort, and a half-blood child who'd brought them together. It was unconventional and complicated and absolutely perfect. The years that followed were full and rich. Vivienne grew into her immortality, became a respected figure in vampire society, and helped Octavian lead their territory with wisdom and compassion. She advocated for half-blood children, creating programs and protections that ensured others like Seraphina wouldn't face the rejection and danger she had. Seraphina thrived, growing into a confident young woman who embraced both halves of her heritage. She learned vampire politics from Octavian, human culture from Vivienne, and became a bridge between worlds. By the time she reached adulthood, she was respected by both vampires and the human allies who knew their secret. A symbol of possibility and change, Octavian transformed as well, softened by love while maintaining his strength. He was still the vampire king, still commanded absolute respect and authority, but he smiled more, laughed more, seemed more human despite his ancient immortality. Vivienne had given him something he'd thought lost forever: hope and family and joy. 20 years after that first evening in the cafe, Vivienne found herself on the same balcony where she'd asked for immortality, looking out over the city that had become her home. Octavian joined her as he always did, sliding an arm around her waist. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this life? Leaving humanity behind?" "Never, not once." Vivienne leaned into him. "This is where I belong, with you, with Seraphina, with this strange, beautiful, complicated family we've built. I think about that night constantly. The night I saw you with her in the cafe, looking so calm and competent and perfect. I had no idea you'd change everything. Neither did I. I just wanted to help a child who needed someone." Vivienne smiled. "I got so much more than I expected. I got a family, a purpose, a love that will last forever." Speaking of forever, Octavian turned her to face him, and Vivienne saw something vulnerable in his silver eyes. "We've been together for 2 decades. You're my consort, my partner, the mother of my heir in all the ways that matter. I want to make it official. Vampire marriages are rare but binding, eternal in a way human marriages can't be. Vivienne, will you be my mate officially? Will you marry me in the old traditions?" Vivienne's breath caught. She'd known vampire marriage was different, that it involved blood bonds and ancient rituals that tied 2 souls together for true eternity. It was deeper than human marriage, more permanent, more absolute. "Yes," she said without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. I want that bond with you. I want to be yours and you mine in every possible way." Octavian's answering smile was brilliant. He produced a ring from his pocket, ancient and beautiful, with stones that caught the light. "This was my mother's. I've been carrying it for months, waiting for the right moment. This is perfect." Vivienne let him slide the ring onto her finger, feeling the weight of it, the significance. "When?" "Whenever you want. Traditional vampire weddings take place at midnight under the new moon, with the whole territory bearing witness. But we can do it however you'd like. Traditional sounds perfect. I want everyone to see us make this commitment. I want Seraphina to be part of it. I want to show the world that love can transcend everything, even death itself." The wedding was planned for the next new moon, and the entire vampire community mobilized to make it spectacular. The ceremony would take place in an ancient cathedral that vampires had maintained for centuries, hidden beneath the city in passages most humans didn't know existed. On the night itself, Vivienne dressed in a gown of deep midnight blue, traditional for vampire brides, with silver embroidery that caught light like stars. Her hair was arranged in an elaborate style, and she wore Yarrow family jewels that had been passed down through generations. She looked like vampire royalty, ethereal and powerful and beautiful. Seraphina, now a poised young woman, helped with final preparations. "You look perfect, Mama." The title had evolved naturally over the years, and Vivienne treasured it every time. "Thank you, sweetheart. Is everything ready below?" "Everyone's waiting. Uncle Octavian has been pacing for an hour. Lysander is threatening to sedate him." Seraphina grinned. I think he's nervous. So am I. Vivienne took a deep breath. This is huge. But right, you two are perfect together. You have been since the beginning. Seraphina hugged her carefully. I'm so happy you chose us, chose this life. I'd choose it again in a heartbeat. The cathedral was breathtaking, lit by thousands of candles, and filled with vampires dressed in their finest. The old stone walls echoed with anticipation, and Vivienne felt the weight of centuries as she walked down the aisle toward where Octavian waited. He looked magnificent in traditional vampire formal wear, all black and silver, with the Yarrow crest displayed prominently. His white hair was styled back from his pale face, and his silver eyes were locked on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. The ceremony was conducted in the old language, words that resonated with power and binding magic. They exchanged vows that promised eternity, fidelity, and absolute devotion. Then came the blood exchange, a cut on each of their palms pressed together, mingling their blood in the most intimate vampire ritual. Vivienne felt the bond snap into place, felt Octavian's presence settle into her soul like he'd always belonged there. It was overwhelming and perfect, complete in a way that defied description. They were truly mated now, bound together for all eternity, two souls sharing one existence. Forever, Octavian murmured as they sealed the vows with a kiss. Forever, Vivienne agreed. The celebration afterward was joyous and lasted until dawn forced the vampires to retreat to protected spaces. Vivienne and Octavian slipped away to their private chambers, finally alone as husband and wife, mates in the deepest sense. We did it, Vivienne laughed, collapsing onto their bed still in her wedding gown. We're really married. We're mated. It's more than marriage. Octavian joined her, pulling her close. I can feel you now, in my soul. Your emotions, your presence. We're connected in ways I'd only read about. I feel it too. It's like you're part of me now. Vivienne traced his features with gentle fingers. I love you so much. Thank you for waiting for me in that cafe all those years ago. Thank you for trusting me with Seraphina. Thank you for showing me this world. Thank you for saying yes to a crazy vampire king's offer. Thank you for loving my niece, for loving me, for choosing this life. Octavian kissed her softly. You've given me everything I'd stopped believing existed. Hope and family and love that feels endless. They held each other in the quiet darkness, two immortals who'd found something precious and rare. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the wedding that had just bound two souls together for eternity. In their chambers, Vivienne and Octavian celebrated their union, grateful for every choice that had led them to this moment. Years continued to pass, decades blending into each other the way they did for immortals. Vivienne became known throughout the vampire world as a wise and compassionate leader, helping Octavian modernize policies and bridge gaps between vampire society and the human world. She never forgot her origins, maintained relationships with select humans who knew the truth, and ensured that half-blood children received protection and opportunity. Seraphina eventually took on more responsibilities, proving herself a capable heir. She fell in love with another half-blood vampire, and Vivienne and Octavian celebrated when she announced her own mating ceremony. The family continued to grow and evolve, bound by love more than blood, by choice more than obligation. On the 50th anniversary of the night Octavian had first seen Vivienne in the cafe, they returned to that same location. The cafe had changed ownership several times, but the building remained, and Octavian had purchased it years ago as a private sentimental investment. They sat in the corner booth, where it had all begun, holding hands across the table, looking at each other with the deep affection of couples who'd weathered everything together. Do you remember that night? Octavian asked. When I saw you holding Seraphina, when everything changed. I remember thinking you looked terrifying and lonely at the same time, like you needed saving as much as she did. Vivienne smiled. I had no idea what I was getting into. Would you have said yes if you'd known? If you'd known about the danger, the transformation, the complexity of vampire politics? Vivienne considered, then nodded firmly. Yes, because I'd have known about love too, about the family we'd build, the life we'd create together. That would have been worth any cost. I never expected to fall in love with my niece's guardian, never expected a human woman to change everything about how I viewed the world. Octavian brought her hand to his lips. But I'm grateful every day that I did. You're the best decision I never knew I needed to make. We both made good decisions that night. You trusting a random human with your precious niece, me saying yes to an impossible situation. Vivienne leaned forward. And we've been making good decisions together ever since. What do you think about the next 50 years? Any plans or goals? More of the same. Love you, help raise whatever grandchildren Seraphina and her mate give us. Continue making the vampire world a better place. Vivienne's eyes sparkled with mischief. maybe convince you to take an actual vacation for once. I hear the Scottish Highlands are beautiful, and I've always wanted to see vampire castles, a vacation. I haven't taken one of those in centuries, probably. Octavian considered. But yes, let's do that. Let's see the old country, show you where vampire nobility began, make new memories while honoring the old ones. That sounds perfect. They sat there for a while longer, comfortable in the silence that comes from truly knowing another person. Around them, the city continued its endless motion, humans and vampires coexisting in the careful balance that leaders like Octavian and Vivienne maintained. But in that moment, in that corner booth where everything had started, they were simply a couple in love, grateful for every twist of fate that had brought them together. Vivienne had raised a motherless child, had given love and stability when no one else would. Octavian had never expected to fall so hard for the quiet human who'd stepped into his life and changed everything. But they'd both taken the risk, had chosen to build something beautiful and unexpected, and they had forever to keep building it, together. Their story wasn't about a vampire king and a human woman anymore. It was about mates who'd found each other against all odds, about family forged through choice and love, about the courage to change and the strength to endure. It was about forever. And forever had never looked so bright. Years would continue to pass, centuries stretching ahead of them, but Vivienne and Octavian would face them together. With Seraphina and their growing family, with the vampire community they'd worked so hard to improve, with the love that had started in a simple cafe and grown into something eternal. Some love stories are quiet, developing slowly in the spaces between dramatic events. Some are built on sacrifice and choice, on the decision to stay when leaving would be easier. Vivienne and Octavian's story was both of those things and more. It was proof that family could be chosen, that love could transcend species and mortality, that taking a chance on the impossible could lead to everything. As they finally left the cafe and walked home through the moonlit city, hand in hand, they knew they'd made the right choice all those years ago. Every challenge had been worth it. Every sacrifice had led to this. They had their family, their love, and their forever. And in the vampire world, forever was a very long time indeed. A time they would fill with love, laughter, and the quiet joy of belonging. The end of their human beginning was just the start of their immortal forever, and they were ready to embrace every moment of it, together.